So in the movie version of your life story, who plays Sonia Denoncourt?
I don't know.
Because it's a movie worthy story. And one day we'll end up on the silver screen, I'm sure. So, and the fact that you did achieve what you did in that kind of crucible of that environment makes the achievements all that more impressive.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot to say, and then there's a lot that people don't know. Because we've been like fairly quiet. We just go out there, do the job, and then like very little talking outside. People are starting to be a little bit more vocal. And maybe now that I'm like fading away a little bit out of like soccer, there I go. I may be a little bit more outspoken.
Hello and welcome to episode 24 of The Final Whistle. We're absolutely delighted because we've got a really special guest. You'll have noticed for some time now we've talked about the role of women match officials and things. So we're delighted to have the first ever FIFA women's referee to referee at any Olympic Games. The gold medal match final referee in women's at Sydney 2000 Olympics, and also the first woman to referee a Brazilian top division league game. So welcome, Sonia Denoncourt.
Can I just say, has anyone got imposter syndrome here?
I know. We're in the presence of a proper great here. I was saying just before we came on to start recording, I'm so looking forward to what comes out of this. So Sonia, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor for me to be here. I think your podcast is fantastic. So really, it's an honor for me.
One of the things I'm definitely going to ask you at some point is that we need to find out what those match balls are behind you. They look brilliant.
I have a huge collection. I must have like 125 balls. Those are like just a few I have here in my house in Florida. The rest is in Canada, and it covers the whole wall. This is what you should see, actually. But they all mean something. A game that I refereed, or a tournament that I've organized, or something special that like people sign, or like, yeah, they all meant something.
Oh, and have you got to go around every day and inflate them, or did he
pressure check them to make sure they're regulation?
When you get up in the morning, you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, this isn't compliant. We need to sort this out."
Well, I've lowered my standard with that. I just pump it once. They're good quality. They keep just enough pressure to stay beautiful.
Brilliant, absolutely, brother. Really impressive.
Growing up in Canada, Sonia, it's a lacrosse country. How did football and particularly refereeing sort of come on your radar?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first started, there was nothing. There was barely any football when I started to play. I was 9-year-old. And I may see football or soccer. I hope you're okay with that, but this is Canada. And then I started to play, and then a little bit of mix, and went up and up. And then I was 14, and then my coach said, "Who wants to become a referee?" And I don't know why. I put my hand up and took the course and started to referee, and it was fun, and I enjoyed it. And it went up and up and up and up. But there was not much good level to referee, so it took a while to, really get started. So, now you can become a FIFA referee in 5 years with like just a few games under your belt. It took us like 10, 12, 15 years before just to have enough experience. And obviously there's no women's World Cup or Olympic. It started like after. So it's a young sport in a way.
I think that one of the things that really grabbed my attention and that I noticed was the fact that obviously when I was looking at sort of the things and the referees that you've worked with and things like that, they all talk so highly about the attention to detail that you brought to them. And I wonder who put those values into you as a referee?
I think I am a little bit of perfectionist in a way that like I like to do things properly. So I try to prepare for it. I try to tell the referees that, this could be your last game, so make the best of it, like do 100% and referee that like it's it's the end of the world, right? And then you want to be happy at the end of the match, no matter what, because you never know, right? There's so many stuff going on in life that you never know when you're going to be sick or an accident, or like somebody will decide that that's it for you. So you're left to the universe to decide on many of the stuff in your career. So I try to enjoy every minute and then be very intense in what I do. And when I don't feel I'm like 100%, then I step down, or I find the right people to fill the gap.
One of the things when I coach referees is when the Women's Super League was growing over here in England, a lot of the referees were sort of not really taking it serious. And it used to really, really get on my nerves because, you know, they'd be, "Oh, you're okay, love," you know, to women. And I used to find them, look, you know, these are professional footballers here. Some of these people you're dealing with are international. Just treat them like a footballer. Don't treat them like a woman. Just treat them like a footballer. And I remember a guy saying to me, "Oh my God, I got so much stick for saying, 'Oh, are you okay, love?' And like a patronizing thing." Where it took a while for people to realize, you know, the skill levels, the commitment levels, the everything that was involved in women's football, exactly the same as men's football. But it was this attitude where it took a sort of artificial way to acclimatise with it. But my dealings with it, because I'm in the sports business with clothing, and they had women's, you know, football and female football teams. I knew there was this undercurrent ready to explode with the right sort of support behind it off the field of play, and particularly with match officials. So if I'm honest, I'm really delighted the way the women's game has grown in England. I really am.
Yeah. Oh my God, you nailed something very important. You know, if I was going to write a book, I'd have a whole chapter on this, just because if I was telling you all the names I've been called on the field over my career, and then other stuff like go back to your kitchen and all the stuff that like are just not appropriate, I really close my eyes and then like, you know, ignore most of the stuff, because it would have been like millions of like red cards in every match. So you can't sweat the small stuff. You just learn to deal with this and then just put them in place when need be. But I don't know, some people like feel the need that, you know, if they talk to you like this, they feel like they're on top of you and maybe try to influence your decision. It's a bit outrageous. And then the men referees also get a lot of abuse like this. But like, I think for us, it's more because if we referee men's football, then often they're not used to it. So they don't know how to react. They may say something they regret later. They don't know the impact of it. So it is hard. You have to be to have a thick skin and be solid out there.
I was going to ask you there, just, obviously you touched on it before about the shortage of games for you. Did that mean that you were actually, a lot of your early games were men's games because of the lack of women's games? And so you were encountering those kind of comments almost immediately from qualifying? Yeah.
I think, if I eliminate all the FIFA World Cups, like the 3 World Cups and the Olympics and all the qualifying around this, which was mainly women, the rest of my games at home or North America or around the world, they were men's game. To get to that level, we had to ref semi-pro and then get something consistent to be able to get on the women's side at the highest level. And yes, I've heard everything. I must have been the first women referee to a lot of men players in this.
One of my claim to fame is Janie Frampton, we're lucky enough to have Janie, and I know you know Janie as our chair. When I was coming through, I did a line to Janie, and the referee was Wendy Toms.
Oh, good.
And they never had the facilities there like they did. Like luckily enough now, the facilities are a lot more accommodating to female match officials and male. And I never forget it was really funny. And of course they totally turned the tables on me. They were doing all the patronising to me. "Oh, love, are you okay? Do you want us to go outside when you get changed?" And all those little stereotypical things that men do. It was so funny. There's a famous female comedy duo over here in the UK called French and Saunders. And it was literally like having 2 comedians. And when I was running, they were going, "Oh, nice bum, oh." And it was so funny because to be honest, it helped me because it realised how patronising we can be without even realising how patronising it was. And of course, Wendy had a tremendous game. Janie is always a good top match official. So that experience opened my eyes a little bit, really, very early on. We're talking 20 years ago now, when Wendy was, then it was called the panel, which is just below professional level. It was national. Yeah. And it was clear she was a top match official. And it was just a shame that one of the conversations we have on our Facebook page was about, back then, 20 odd years ago, the highest ranking match official we had was Wendy Toms, who was a Premier League assistant and what's known as a level 2 panel assistant referee. Well, fast forward now, whatever that's going on with the game, that's exactly what we've got now. We've got Sean, one of the best assistant referees in the world, a really good girl. And we've got Rebecca Welsh, who's a 2A referee. And it's always worried me because when you see what's happened in those 20 years, the women's game hasn't really developed in regards to where we are with match officials. And it frustrates me a little bit when we see Bibiana Steinhaus coming through, we see Stephanie coming through, all through the men's game. But we had that 20 years ago with Wendy. And I just glad it's changed now and everyone's seeing it as a match official and hopefully, the women's game and the whole of refereeing will benefit from those changes.
Yeah, you're totally right. Well, first of all, you were well surrounded with Wendy and Jennifer, and those two are lovely. And Wendy's such a good referee. And I mean, so I love those two. I got the chance to referee also at the Olympic with Wendy. And actually, there's a funny story there because I'm a little going off a little bit now, but like a funny story at this Olympic in Sydney, Wendy was in a different city. She was assigned to a match and then she twisted her ankle. So the night before they flew me in to replace her. And I thank her for the rest of my life to give me her game, and we joked about it. It's like, she was not happy about it, but her ankle was like this. And it was like, thank you for giving me your game. I was like so delighted. And so we've been teasing one another since then. But they're good people. And going back to this, it's true. Like one of your first comment, you said that it was diverted to you. Well, most of the games I ref, I was the only woman with a crew of men referee, which I don't care. I don't mind. For me, like you said, it's all equal. Whatever I ref, men or women, whoever I'm with, doesn't matter. We always make it work. But the players, when they didn't know me, they were like going straight to the man. It's like, oh, you're the referee today. And it's like, no, I am, And then, so yeah, there's the perception and the approach is different. But back in 94, I was maybe the first referee in the world, but now, like a few years later, we have over 1,000 something women referees. So it has changed, not as fast as we would like to, but at least it's progressing. And I hope to believe that the work we've been doing for the last 30 years, even though it's not a fast pace progressing, we're getting there slowly.
You said 94 there. Were you the first female official to join the FIFA list?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We were only 4 in the world on that year. And then in 95, they opened up. I was actually an assistant referee on my first year on the men's list. And in 1995, at the Women's World Cup in Sweden, the second Women's World Cup, they opened up to have a women FIFA referee list. So I became a referee right away. I think I'm a better referee than assistant. I would carry my whistle much better than a flag, I think. And then so we were 20 back in 1995, only female referee in the world. And then boom, 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 it went up like crazy. So what is it now? About like 3,500 FIFA referees in the world. And then the women's are about a third of that. So we've come a long way.
It's fair to say you are a pioneer for female match officials. And it's amazing to hear you talk about it as if it was yesterday for you. Obviously, it's obviously still something that you're very passionate about, which is fantastic. But thinking back all those 25, 26 years ago, what was it like being like the first female? Was there any kind of opposition to you being there? Was everyone really welcoming? What was the kind of feel of you being a trailblazer at that time?
I think saying that it was not easy, it's an understatement. I was extremely difficult, and they made sure they made it difficult for you to progress. I was seen as an alien everywhere. I was like, what? Like, what is she doing here? You know, like, so they couldn't understand, and it was really hard. But I have to admit that I had like a couple people on the top there, decision maker, that believed in it. And then they say, no, she's going to go to that national championship because she's one of the best based on performance. And then but it was hard. Every step of the way was hard. I don't know how I survived like some of those, not the matches, because once I got my uniform on and I was on the match, I was like 100% there. And then I gained respect by the players, from the players. And I think most of the matches in my career, I hope so, it went like pretty well. It was like off the field battle to convince people that, no, make me run the men's fitness test. I'm going to prove myself and I should be there. It was trying to get like equality, opportunities, and just like forget the gender and just focus on any test. No fast tracking. I didn't want to have any fast tracking. I want to be equal to everybody, but also get the same opportunities.
So in the movie version of your life story, who plays Sonia Denoncourt?
I don't know.
Because it's a movie worthy story, and one day it will end up on the silver screen, I'm sure. So and the fact that you did achieve what you did in that kind of crucible of that environment makes the achievements all that more impressive.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot to say, and then there's a lot that people don't know. Because we've been like fairly quiet. We just go out there, do the job, and then like very little talking outside. People are starting to be a little bit more vocal. And maybe now that I'm like fading away a little bit out of like soccer, there I go. I may be a little bit more outspoken.
Well, listen, I think Renée Zellweger will play you perfectly. We could have some of the Bridget Jones's diaries. We could have Sonia Denoncourt diaries. I think they'd be very, very interesting. Them, I think they really, really was. And I think I was sitting here just thinking about, how hard it must be to get that level as a human being, to achieve what you achieved. And the amount of how many people's done a gold medal Olympic football match in the world? How many? There can't be many. Can't be more than 20. Yeah. Because I can't remember how long football's been an Olympic sport. So that in itself is just an incredible achievement for a human being. Adding to the fact that challenges that people will naturally not be comfortable with a woman achieving what you do, completely wrong. I just think it's a real privilege to sit here and have you on and listen to you. I think it's brilliant. I really do.
Well, thank you. I have to say that, back then, that you were alone in the world. Thankfully, I was a physical education teacher. So I was my own trainer. I was my own psychologist. I was my own, nutritionist. And I was I've been vegetarian pretty much all my life, but also, believe in, balance and all this. But I was my own coach. Now you go to a FIFA tournament and we have just as more staff as referee on board, we have 40, 50 referees and we have 30 staff, physio therapists, mesotherapists and, everything you can imagine. So back then you needed a lot of discipline and strength to go over. And then if you had a bad day, you didn't know where to turn, who am I going to talk to now? Yeah. I'm proud of it, especially because it was difficult back then. And now I think it's much easier in a way because there's a lot more support, a lot more online stuff, educational tools that they can use or people to reach, a lot of mentors, a lot of programs that they can use. So it's definitely different now. And then thank God we needed that.
When you obviously you just touched on it there right at the very beginning, you said obviously coming onto the list as an assistant in 94, then going to the second ever Women's World Cup in 95, and then obviously 96 was the Atlanta Olympics, and you getting to do the first ever women's game that had ever been at an Olympic Games. When you think about those 3 years and how quickly it went, what were the feelings?
A lot happened between 95 and 99. Well, 95, the Women's World Cup in Sweden, we were only 6 women referees and the rest were male referees. And I got the opening and I got the third place game and semifinal. I had lots of games, and it was a really good tournament for me. 96 Olympic was like, oh my God, the best thing that could ever happen, right? When I got this call, I'm like, yes, first Olympic ever. And I got the opening game. It was tough. Like Germany, Japan, it was a tough game. But again, then we were not quite half and half. There was a little less women than men referees. And then so some of the men referees were not only refereeing men's game at the Olympics, but also had to cover some of the women's game. And I will never forget this guy from, I'll say Africa Confederation. I won't name a country in particular, but he was assigned to a women's game. And then like I was fourth official, and he came to me crying, and he's like, I have never reffed a women's game in my life. And he said, what do I do? How do I talk to them? Where do I go? Do I run the same? Do I let like as much physical contact? He didn't know what to do at all. And it was his first women's game ever at the Olympics. So that really opened my eyes of like, oh boy, but this guy was so emotional. He was crying at the end of the game. He's like, oh my God, it's just made his life, But we had like a lot of stories like this. So 96 was a turning point. 99 and 2003, the two World Cup were in the U.S. because it couldn't happen in China because of SARS at the time. But 99 was also a big turning point. There was the first time we were all women referees at the tournament, and we were only 32 to cover all the games. Yeah. So I think I had 9 games in this tournament. It was just nonstop. Yeah, it doesn't happen now. You have a game and then a week to recover. Yeah. But back then, it was just one thing after the other. But that was the first Women's World Cup in 99 that we were all female refereeing.
That's unbelievable. In 1997, though, it was the 8th of February 1997. You had the opening fixture of the Paulista Championship between San Jose and Palmeiras. What was it like when you took that call and to think about that fixture? Because when we think of South America here, we think about the raucous crowds and the unbelievable atmosphere and samba and all these amazing things. What was that like from the call to walking out with the ball under your arm?
That was absolutely insane. Back then in 97, I had my own business. I had a bicycle store in Montreal. And so the month of January, we were off. We were closed completely because the rest of the year we're open 7 days a week. So that month I decided to drive down to Florida, which is about 2,500 miles, right? As soon as I got there, I got the call. Oh no, I had to drive all the way back. It took me like 3 or 4 days to come back, like straight back home to catch the flight and go to Brazil. And it was in February, minus like 20 in Canada. And I got there, it was like 100 degrees. It was so hot. And I didn't speak a word of Portuguese. I had learned in the plane about like 20 words that I for the toss and like different things like 10 yards and all that kind of stuff. But I had a translator and I had like a driver. It was really, really nice in that way. But they put a lot of pressure on me. I think this game alone, I probably gained about 5 years of experience of refereeing. Everything was different. Everything was different and very difficult. They really put the gun right on my head with all the... prior to the game, every day I had something. They made me do a press conference, like another speech somewhere else, another thing. Everybody was interested and intrigued by like, who's this alien? We've never had a women referee reffing men's first division professional in Brazil. So it was difficult. And it made me do like crazy stuff too that like, when you look back then, they want me to have like big red lipstick and then like a little like sexy tank top and holding my whistle in a certain way. They want to sexualize really the job. And it was like very uncomfortable for me. But there's so many stories about this. And then I came back and I had like 2 inches of like clips from different papers. Every day there was like 6, 7, 8 newspaper that was like front page of like, who's this person coming to ref a men's game,
It's funny you say lipstick. Yeah. When you're describing your lipstick and everything else, I've seen many photographs of Anthony exactly the same attire. Anthony loves it. He loves getting a little slippy top out.
That's not even a wind-up. That is true. If you go through my Instagram, it's there.
I could see his eyes light up saying, "Oh, what's
I was gonna say
that Sonia and Ant could compare notes on what would be the right tone for his skin.
Yeah. No, and then but the match itself, it was Brazil is different. Like 2-3 hours before the match, the stadium is already packed and it's all men. I don't think I've seen like one woman in the stadium because it was so hot. Nobody had a shirt on, so it was easy to see. There was all men everywhere in the stadium. And so even 2 hours before the game, like cheerleaders and all this, we had to go like under a tunnel to go to the pitch for safety reason. And then during the whole warm-up, we used to warm up on the field. The only thing I could hear is like yelling and screaming and dancing and music. And then for about like an hour. And it was like, obviously it was towards us. And it was like, oh my God, that's uncomfortable.
Were you with Canadian colleagues who were also females, or were you with Brazilian male colleagues?
No, it's funny, Brazil, they saw me at the Algarve Cup in Portugal, and this is when they approached me, they invited me. So it was not a FIFA appointment, it was a Brazilian appointment. Okay. And I didn't know who was getting until I got there. And then they gave me 2 women assistants that didn't have much experience at the time. So that was really tough. We didn't even have like an official, fourth official. It was this guy not in uniform that's sitting there between the 2 benches trying to help. It was like, oh my God. Okay. So, and then, yeah, it was brutal. And then they said, like, the day before when we had the pre-match meeting, they said, oh, we're going to have timeouts during the match. I'm like, timeouts? I was like, no, we can't do that. Anyway, I had to call FIFA. I was alone there. I was really alone. And then like feeling that like I had no say, and it was all in Portuguese, and they were translating, I think, part of what was being said, obviously. Yeah. So I called FIFA. I said, am I allowed to do timeouts during this match? It was televised in 100 countries. So I had to like get FIFA permission to do this. FIFA said no. I said, well, can you talk to Brazilian Federation? And then I think they had a big argument because Brazilian Federation, they said, well, it doesn't matter what FIFA say. We invited you and you're going to do whatever we want. I said, anyway, so we went around it. You know how it happened? Instead of an official timeout, they had a player injured for a long time. Pretty clever. Anyway, so, was
that for like television advertisements that they wanted to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was more like the big marketing thing behind it. And then they want to have a break too, because it's so hot. They want to give like a water break to the players and then give some tactical information to their teams and all this. But back then it was not allowed by FIFA. So I could say at least I respect my FIFA badge. I didn't want to lose it. I'd never done the timeout. They just did it.
That's mad. And all these games you've done, and I'm looking at the notes that Nathan sent me about what you've achieved. And you mentioned that you listened to the podcast with Mark Clattenburg that we did. And he said he got tattoos for all the big games he did. I think you'd be covered in tattoos, wouldn't you, if you did that? How many events you've done is just unbelievable.
You know, it's really funny because I don't have any tattoos, but for many years, I thought I should have this Olympic tattoos, but I'm like, it's a part of your life, and that's why I've never done it. But I have other things to remind me all those games.
Oh, and with the balls, again, going back to the balls, and it was I love it. Absolutely. I'll be honest, I've done the same. When I've done a big game, when I was coming through, I always like to have a ball. And you might not know, but there's a stereotypical thing about me. I'm from Liverpool, the city of Liverpool, and we've always had a reputation of being thieves. They always say. So, like, if I had loads of balls behind there, they'd all want me to know exactly where they got them from. If I had a receipt.
I swear, I've never stole a ball. I've asked permission to get the ball. I had to insist a few times, but I've never stole a ball.
So what other mementos have you got? And also, actually, before you move on, a very important question. Do you use a coloured whistle or a black whistle?
Oh, always black. I despise people using a whistle to the color of their shirt or their socks just for fun. Just like, it brings attention. Why? I'm a real believer that we should be in black and black whistle. I mean,
Sonia, Sonia, you've got to tell Ant that directly.
Anthony,
listen, I'm listening. I'm hearing these words. And again, with all the other guests that have said about these black whistles, I've respected them massively up until the point where they've said that my neon whistles are not cool.
When I was in charge of FIFA with, all the ladies for 10 years, some came with like a yellow whistle with a yellow shirt. And then I had to stop them. I said, you bring attention to you for nothing and there's no need for it. And so, no, I don't know.
Yeah, but Sonia, they look dead funky. When you can flash your whistle up to your mouth dead quick, it'll leave a little neon trail if it's a night game.
I think that's you told, Ant.
Funny enough, we had a few incidents where the referee had the yellow whistle and showing a card, and it looked like a yellow card, but no, it was the whistle, like showing a signal. And then anyway, for many reasons, I'm like,
I agree, absolutely agree. And it's little tips like that, and we've come on to some tips because obviously you're a world-class referee coach, is that some referees have write on cards when they do a caution. Some have a book. And there's different ways to skin a cat with caution and technique. But I remember when I was coaching a referee coming through the ranks, and every time he got his book out, the first thing you seen was red, because he kept his red card in the back of his booklet. Yeah. So if he was going to give a caution, and maybe there was a couple of players around him, he might have always been a caution, but someone would say, you were going to red him, but they changed your mind. And it's never a world-changing tip. But that's I'm with you on that. You should never see a yellow or a red, apart from when you get your cards out, not with whistles and I think it's a little subtle change that in your toolbox of referees, those little subtleties just, at all that extra 1% that just gets you that little bit better than someone else. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're absolutely right. Like the job is so hard on its own. Just make your life easier, with having two pen, whatever works for you. But don't give a chance to the players to be doubting your call or whatever you're doing. Just keep it simple but efficient.
Brilliant advice. I totally agree with that. You're taking that in, Anthony?
No.
It's funny friends that you're talking to. Take great advice.
No. Listen, I've spent like 20 quid on 4 different neon whistles, a yellow, an orange, a green, and it's a nice little fun little thing I've got going on. I can't be affording to go out and buy loads of black whistles now. I've made my investment. I'm going to have to stick with it.
Well, listen, depends. If I go around the park and ref like a fun game on a Sunday, I have no problem with that. But
there you go.
If it's on TV and it's a professional game, then I would much prefer a black whistle.
I'm absolutely with you on that.
When we were talking about mementos,
go on, move on.
Yeah, when we were talking about mementos before, Sonia, I was just thinking about we talked about it in the introduction here. At your second Olympic Games, you were awarded the gold medal match. So, were you feeling that you'd had a good tournament up to that point, and that you felt that there was a possibility you could get that? And obviously we talked about mementos. You must have got a particularly strong memento from an Olympic gold medal match.
Yeah, I think it was like good years. And then back then they were they were saying, I was the best referee in the world. And then Mr. Blatter loved me at the time. And then and I don't know. And I do think it was more based on performance. There was only one guy from FIFA running the referee department at the tournament. There was, I think it was a little bit more pure back then. And I do feel that it was based on performance, not that there was no other good referees out there. But I think I deserved that match. And I was used to bigger crowds and, dealing with all kinds of stuff in Australia, So, yeah, I think it was based on, I want to believe that it was based on performance.
Do you come 100%. Away with the same gold medal that the players got for winning? Is it like the exact same kind of thing?
No, it's not exactly the same, but it is a gold medal with, the Olympic and FIFA and all this. So I I was at home, I could show you because I have a whole wall with this. But
I was going to say, when you're at home and everything's casual, do you ever just like pop it on and walk around and be like,
yeah? No, I don't. But I kept this as a precious souvenir. But yeah, we do get, and it's precious for us as well because it's not just working for a month. It's like the 4 years period of you preparing for a big competition. It's also like the players, like such a reward to be appointed for a big game. And then that's the little thing that we have left from that game. It's either a ball or a medal. So yeah, it's important.
Because you came full circle, didn't you? Because you'd been the fourth official in Atlanta in 1996 at the gold medal match. And then to actually be in that position, it must have been a real full circle experience for you.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I got like pretty fortunate. I had a lot of like opening games, which, for FIFA is really important because you sort of set the pace for the tournament. You're telling the players and the coach and the team and the fans that like, this is how this tournament is going to be called. So, we've always made like a good importance, a good impact on like who's going to ref the first game. And you've all been there, right? The semifinals are also crucial.
Yeah.
And then the final is like, it's often an easier game than the semifinal, but it's the honor. And I think for me, I take just one game at a time, and they're all precious. Like I said earlier, I would ref like any game as it's my last game. So that's what I did, final or semi or opening or whatever games that it is.
Your passion that's coming through now, and obviously that's back in the 90s. I just can see how driven you must have been and determined, but also. Back then, when this is what I'm in my head, I'm just saying what's in my head. How amazing you must have been as a match official, because back then, I take it we didn't have electronic buzzer flags, we didn't have headsets, and you got you're out there on your own. Really, I know you got a team of three, and I'm just getting more and more impressed when things are coming to my head. How you delivered those games just as a match official. It just must have been so difficult, and the skills just top drawer.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so funny because now there's so much electronic device that you can use, but like you said so well, we had just a regular flag that was like often breaking during the match, or it was too long. The ladies were stepping on it. And then but we had to work really on a lot of secret signals. And what was difficult back then is like, often all my international matches were with people that didn't speak either French, English, or Spanish. I was refereeing with Japanese people or and then I'm French, obviously. So French, English, and a bit of Spanish, I could get by, but like Japanese and Chinese and then other languages, it was really difficult. So we were spending like 2 hours to do the pregame instruction. I had like a book with different colors, with different language, and saying what I want, if it's a penalty kick, what signal I want. And then it was really hard for most of the people because there was not much training. There was nothing universal before. How you call a penalty kick from an assistant referee perspective, there's 200 ways. So, yeah, it was difficult. And then sometimes like, well, what are you trying to tell me? Like no communication device. And then we start to do all kind of signals, but under the pressure, they all forgot that. Right. Yeah. So I was like, okay, we'll go with the flow.
No, it isn't. More and more you were talking and Nathan was mentioning a date. I'm thinking, no, there wasn't buzzer flags. There wasn't head comms. There are language challenges. When I first met Anthony 20 odd years ago on a tournament abroad in Holland, and we all got together. I took a group of referees over there, and one of the things we talked about is advantage in different languages.
Yeah,
because we know one of the big tools for referees is when you play an advantage. I know we want to know what a yellow card is, get back 10 yards, like you rightly said. But advantage was always those sorts of like big nuggets, golden nuggets of a good advantage come off, and it was it was interesting to see on it. And what we would do, we would tell people, we would wind them up like on youth games early on. If it was like a nondescript game, both of them are out of the tournament and they just finished in a group, we'd tell people a different word for advantage just to get people's reaction. And but the learning curve was you had to say something to show what you're doing. And those comms, those communications of what you're doing and what you're not doing, apply to every level of football, don't they?
Yeah, totally.
And the point of that was when you were saying that word, and I remember you wound me up on that one because you said the word for advantage in Dutch, and I was refereeing a Dutch team at the time, was bollocks, and it turns out that wasn't advantage at all. It was something else. It was something else.
How did you fall for that? And how did you fall for that?
I trusted Martin. I've never trusted him since, obviously. But I tell you what I did do. I sold that bollocks as best as I could, and no one questioned it, even though I was clearly shouting a rude word in Dutch. They looked, and I'm giving a big, strong signal, and I'm running, and play's carrying on. We talked about it after the game, but during the game, I was selling that advantage.
Yeah. No, it's true. We had to use our body language a lot, and then especially, maybe my English was a little bit more limited also back then. So less I speak, better it was for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then whatever you say could be turned against you, right? As a referee. So in a general term, you have to be careful what you say and then not entertain a conversation on the pitch. But I was using my body language a lot, and I was making myself very clear. I was trying to be close to the play and then use other tools back to the basically, and then make myself understood. Interesting.
It's really important. And on the gold medal game, was that Norway against America, United States?
Yes.
So this might be a silly question, but it's just in my head. Was there any sort of people saying, oh, they're Canadians and they don't like the Americans? Was there any of that?
Yeah, it has changed because for the longest period of time, you were not allowed to referee any international match of your own country, obviously, or neighbors. Yeah. And then from here, here we know Canada's Canada, US is US, but from Europe, it's a little too close neighbors, right? Yeah. So we tried anyway, even in my beginning at that FIFA, we tried to avoid to work even in the same confederation. So when we had a FIFA tournament, it is a real Sudoku puzzle to appoint some referees that is not your country, not your confederation, neutral. And then we didn't have any trios. So it could have been 4 referees from 4 different countries on top of that. So, you could see the logistic of all this. It was difficult. And then sometime it happened. So on that game, I was a little bit surprised in a way because they had said at the beginning of the tournament that this is what they're going to try to do. And so it can't only be based on performance. However, when they made their decision, I guess they were confident enough that there was neutrality and it would not be an issue. And the two teams embraced the situation and accepted it as yeah, we don't care. We want the best referee that you have out here. And then so it was accepted, no problem. And now it became a little bit more common that you see that, and people don't question as much.
When you were coming towards the end of your active career, you did a bit of coaching, didn't you? And that was what persuaded FIFA to make you the head of women's refereeing overall off the back of that coaching. So you were at a tournament, weren't you, where you did some coaching and then that convinced them?
Yeah. I was invited as a FIFA instructor in a futsal course, and all of a sudden I got there and they said pretty much you're in charge and take the lead. I'm like, okay. And that was my first one. And then I was at the end of my career, it was 2004. And there was nobody at FIFA taking care of the women's program. There was actually no women's program, 0. So they said, are you going to retire soon? I said, well, I'd like to have another World Cup or Olympics. But they said, you already have 3, so we're not going to give you another one. So I said, well, I'm only 40. I have a few more years. Back then it was 45 years old age limit, right? And then so anyway, they convinced me. And in November, they flew me to Switzerland. They basically, the interview was the funniest I've ever had. I met HR, I met the director of competition, and then a couple of the people, and they say it was already sold, right? They gave me a white piece of paper, and they say, please write your job description. I'm like, oh yes. Okay, good, very good. So I wrote what I think we could do in the women's program, how we can start it, and sustainability and all this, and a plan, sort of. And at the bottom, a big fat salary too,
Yes. That's the most important part. Forget the job description. What's the number?
Yeah. I was not going to leave everything like in North America to cross the ocean. But on a serious note, it was really a great opportunity, big challenge. And then I think, the more or less 10 years I was at FIFA, I was able to start a program, give enough bone to it, and then being a team around it, all technical instructors and fitness instructor and all this, and people that believed in the women's game as well. So I built a team around it and reinstate the credibility of women referees, and then who's going to manage those people. So it was a bit of a cleanup to do, I have to say, and it was hard at times, and it was difficult to convince people that yes, we can do this. But we had our own program, and then I think it was really successful. I'm proud of what we achieved in those 10 years, and now it developed into a lot more the last few years. So it's fantastic.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because to me, it seems like your career has been shaped by decades. So 1994, you start your 10 years on the FIFA list. And then in 2005, you start your 10 years. And it's almost like you're going back to the start because you're a pioneer as a female active official. And then in the sort of the mid-noughties, mid-2000s, you're then starting your pioneering career as somebody who can develop female match officials at an international level and basically allow them or certainly be the starting point for what we see now, when particularly what we saw I think it was in France, wasn't it, the last female women's World Cup, and all the sort of the females being able to use VAR and all the things that go along with that. That was another thing that, again, you were a pioneer on.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Good observation. It's true. I hope I changed mentalities a little bit along the way. I faced a lot of roadblock. I had to convince people. So I spent a lot of energy and time over those years just to make them believe that, yes, there's a lot of good people out there that can do the job just as good as any men referee. And then and it was not to compare. It was just give them an opportunity if they're good enough.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was one to be really strong on them. I was there to protect them, but I was really, I think, demanding and strong because you can't be average at this level. You got to be on top of your game. And then if you want to ref men's game, do the men's fitness test. There's no, you're a woman, we'll give you a chance. No, there's nothing like that for me. It's you got to prove what you can do. And then if you're good enough, great, you go to the next level. And it's not for everybody. No.
Brilliant, absolute amazing attitude, and that's what it should be like, shouldn't it? We all just get the same opportunity, and you've got to pass the same tests, and you've got the same challenges, and that's what I don't think anyone would want it any other way, and rightly so, because it's just an easy target, isn't it, to say, because she's a woman, you wouldn't want that, and I don't think anyone else would want that, and I think that's really important to flash up because. Is again looking at the women's game and the way it's grown, particularly over here in England with the TV coverage and the Barclays are putting money behind it so they can develop their match officials and they're giving them all the opportunities they can. But they've got a women's pathway just for women over here, female pathway, and they've got a men's pathway, and obviously Fabiana Steinhaus and Stephanie will go through the men's game like Sean has done as an assistant referee. But to have someone of the ilk of what you achieved and in the men's game over here, we're probably at least 8 years away from having, for Rebecca to get to the Premier League, we're probably 8 years behind. Yeah. And I think that's a little bit of a concern, really, considering that, if people say it's the best competition in the world. Well, we've proved Sean Massey is a wonderful match official. I tweeted a while back, why isn't she on the men's list anyway? Why it shouldn't be a surprise. Oh, look, a great achievement. She's just got a men's European game. Well, that should have happened when she got on the select group in the very beginning. It's always sort of puzzled me where, they sort of have a pathway for women that doesn't sort of necessarily go back into the men's game. And I'm just not sure that's positive. Just give them all the same chance in the same system.
Yeah, well, I think it is. It took a long time, but I think now people are getting a little bit more convinced that this is possible. We should have like one list, international list now, like male or female. You're an assistant or referee because it's two different jobs and you have to be specialized in your duties in that. But otherwise, it's like you wear a FIFA badge. It's not women referee or men referee. It's like referee, and then you referee the level that you're capable of. This didn't happen overnight, and you're right. It's going to take like another 8-10 years to go to another step. It's a slow progress, but sometimes this is what we need to get somebody ready for the next level. Also, it's hard to change mentality or have a program successful in 1 or 2 years. It takes longer than that, just for the preparation itself. So it's understandable, but like you're right. I wish where we are now it would have happened like 10 years ago.
Because we had them, Sean was there, Wendy was there. I just feel there's a bit of an opportunity missed there, and hopefully they can all move a lot faster. So in other federations like Canada, like the USA, have they got a dedicated women's pathway for match officials, or is it all just one pathway?
No, there's two different pathways. It's starting to like be a little bit more together now, but it's been like two different roads for a little while. Yes.
Okay.
But now it's starting to like the MLS, for example, they have like few more women and few that they want to put like under contract as well, like the men, not just like a game here and there, right? Like, so yeah, it's starting to be together a lot more, and then I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, same here. Absolutely.
I remember in 2003, I went over to the United States. I was working there for a summer, and all of the locals, there's a bunch of us foreigners that went over there, and we went to watch DC United, and I assumed it would just be one game. But what they did is they had double headers in the same stadium. So DC United versus whatever team, and then almost immediately after that game had finished, it goes into either the ladies' game. I can't remember which was first or second, but what struck me all those years ago, almost 20 years ago now, that the women's game of soccer in the United States was way more popular, had loads more fans than the men's game did. So I always was impressed with like this attitude. I don't know if it translated up in Canada, whether it was the same or not, but this progressive, like, it wasn't seen as a women's sport, but it was definitely more popular, the women's game, than the men's. What was it like in Canada around that time? And has it also progressed at the same rate?
Yeah, for a number of years, it was a way of like, it's like a concert. Let's have a pre-show to attract people to come to the stadium a little bit. So at least they're going to catch normally the women's game was before and then the men's game. So that's them in the stadium earlier. At least they're going to see some women's football for maybe a half or like maybe the whole game. And then they'll see how great it is. And then maybe next time they're going to go to a single match women, because it would be worth it to pay for that money to go see a match or spend the time and bring the family. So that was it was a brilliant way to like incite people to get to know the game better. We did this also a little bit, but as you said, now, especially the U.S. women's team is so successful for like still now, like for so many years, they didn't need another game to attract people. Their stadiums are full. So they didn't need that, but like it was a way of like inciting, yes, to bring people in the stadium earlier and stay for the whole time.
I remember years ago, I think it was the year 2000s, was I went to the USA Cup. Swans USA Cup in Minneapolis, and we went over early, and there was an AAG, an All-American Scale competition, and I couldn't believe how popular that was, and that was far more popular than the men's competition. It's a bit of an eye-opener, really. And I remember saying to a friend of mine, God, if the USA get hold of the men's game like they do with the women's game, they're going to be world beaters. They're absolutely going to be world beaters. Yeah. But they're getting better, absolutely. You know, when Alexis Salas was involved and there was some real top-end players coming over to the UK, I just feel as if now one of the things that's happening over there, I'm quite excited about what the USA can do as a nation. Yeah,
absolutely. The women's game for so many years attracted more people than the men's game. And in Canada, we faced a period of time also some years ago that the national team didn't play at home for 3 years, I think, because nobody was coming to the game, or it was so difficult. So the women's game like sort of like took over and became like more popular. because they were winning. They were on the top 5, top 10 in the world. And then the men's game in Canada, the men's national team was way, way behind. So yeah, it's interesting.
I know, Sonia, that it was John Herdman, who's a man from very, very close to where I am now and where I've grown up. He obviously was the women's manager of the Canadian team, and then his promotion, if you like, I suppose, within that organisation, the Canadian Football or Soccer Federation, however they call it, was to take the men's job. So I think it shows how highly regarded that is in North America, that you can get a male job off the back of a women's job now.
Yeah, I mean, John is amazing. I think he did such a great job in Canada with the women's team, for like so many years. It must have been a difficult decision for him to step out and then take the men's national team. But however, it's a great challenge also. Yeah. And then he has this ability to bring people together, and then he's going to make this team successful too. He's just a winner. This guy's a winner. He's a fighter. And then we're totally happy to have him. Yeah.
So just to sort of think about your roles and the way you were working, you've obviously gone on to be a director at CONCACAF now. And is that something where, in terms of you being on the board there, you can have a real heavy influence on the referees in that confederation? The female referees in that confederation, I should say.
Yeah, I'm not involved with CONCACAF anymore. Okay. This was, I left FIFA in October, the 3rd of October, 2014, actually. It was a Friday. I flew on Saturday to Miami, and then Monday I was starting my job at CONCACAF. So it was a quick turnover and difficult job, but it didn't last like as long as I would have liked to, because in 2015 we had this big football scandal where all those people were arrested and in prison, and all the corruption and all this, and that really destroyed CONCACAF, because I think it was one of the confirmation that it was really in bad shape in that aspect. And I could name you a ton of people, but it was one of the reasons that they want me to go to CONCACAF when I left FIFA, to try to re-establish a referee program and give credibility and stop that like nonsense that was going on before. But this was a long-term project, and it was a bit destroyed with all those scandals, because all of a sudden, like, everybody was like, there was no executive committee. Everybody was in prison. Everybody was arrested. And then CONCACAF had been taking a hard hit on this one. So, it's a bit unfortunate, but it was still a good experience, because CONCACAF, we had 41 countries, and then I had to manage a men and a women program and all this. But it was a tough job, and then a bad timing in this whole scenario.
Yeah. So is that what then led to you sort of stepping away and setting up the sports consultancy firm that you run now?
Yeah. When I left CONCACAF, it was I was very devastated. It was much shorter than I wanted to be there, but at the same time, I didn't want to be associated with that kind of stuff. Yeah. I have a lot of integrity, and I have a lot of pride, and if I'm going to work with people that don't want to do at least with some integrity and some justice, I can't do it. I can't do it, and it's there's a certain time that when you hit yourself against a wall, that you're like, okay, this is going to take at least 10 years, 15 years to change some mentality. And I didn't know if I had the time of the world to do this, because it felt like it was, now people don't want to change, and it's totally in a bad position right now. So I think it was the right decision for me to leave.
And is Joe Guest still involved in Canada?
I used to talk to him regularly, and I haven't since last summer. He was towards the end a little bit. He didn't know if he was going to last for the 2026, Canada, USA, Mexico World Cup. Yeah. So I don't know, to be honest, right now, if he's still around. I do think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, because obviously he was I used to work under him when I was at that level. Joe was our sort of god, really, and whenever Joe turned up, we all had to stand at attention. I just remember him going over there. He sent me a message a few years back when he was over there. He was at he was a very good educator, Joe. I always liked how he did things, Joe. And of course, you got Howard Webb over there as well, which we know almost a god over here. Just a
it's interesting because Joe, when I left the CSA to go, I was in charge of refereeing at CSA, and I left to go to FIFA. There was about a 6 to 8 months where there's nobody, and then Joe took that job, and then so we were in contact constantly back then. And then the World Cup that we organized in Canada, he was always like there to help and then to support us, and he did a great job. And then he moved on out of refereeing to more like assistant general secretary, and then more like the management part of it. And it's good to see.
It must be so good, though, to see somebody who, because obviously the MLS spans Canada and the United States. There's clubs in both countries, and it must be so wonderful that there are basically opportunities for officials from both countries. But also, Howard obviously did a piece for the PGMOL last week or the week before we recorded this, for when it goes out, where he spoke at length about the diversity between, obviously, the fact that there's a lot more black and ethnic minority officials who are male, but also a lot more females. And I think that probably is testament to the diversity of the whole landscape that you have across Canada and the United States, because it's such a broad and vast sort of area. So I think that it must be so refreshing for people in North America to see somebody like Howard giving opportunities to these officials.
I've met Howard like really for the first time in 2007 at the Men's World Cup in Canada, and then we had such a great time. And then since then, he's a good friend. This is the best thing that could happen in the MLS, to have Howard leading the pack like the way he does. Yeah. He's such a leader, and he has like so charismatic, and he knows his stuff. He's respected, and for us, we're like totally grateful that he's here and he took the job. But I understand. I lived in 3 different countries: Switzerland for 10 years, and then USA for like some years, and then Canada. And then every time it's a bit of a cultural shock with like everything that you mentioned, the diversity, the mentality.
I think there are great differences, Sonia, between Rotherham and New York City.
Also, definitely. Well, take Miami. Miami is 66% Hispanic. So if you don't speak Spanish in the Miami area, you're a little bit lost almost.
Wow.
Well, listen, we've been on over an hour. Yeah. Very jealous that you're over there in Florida at the moment, and it's been absolutely spellbinding listening to such a trailblazer in our game, and it's been an honour and a privilege. And it's if there's anything that you want us to tweet out for you or help in any way with our social media platforms, and then please just let us know, and we'll see if we can share the love of what you've achieved. It's been amazing. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate. Well, what I do now, I'm semi-retired, so I just do contract here and there that are really at heart for me, and I'm battling a lot. I'm guest speaker, ambassador, motivator. I do different activities with different organizations, but it's all about promoting refereeing. I still do a little bit of technical stuff like instructing, assessing, and stuff in football, but more women in sport, equality, and then working with company like Ref Life, Fair Advantage in Canada, Sport Aid, and then all those companies that promote the health in sport, and respect of the athlete, and cut the violence, cut the discrimination, cut the bribery and the abuse that athletes get too. And then more and more we involve referees in that, because now it's how do we protect the athletes from the bad people out there? Well, we also have the same scenario in refereeing, as you know. And then we're trying to protect the referees because we need them. We don't have enough in the world to cover most of the grassroots games. So we need to support them, and then have good mentorship program and that kind of stuff. So this is more what I do now in terms of my small investment in the game.
Just before we go out, I must say to the listeners that we've got here, by the way, and then the viewers, if you have any time or you want to get any more, really visit Ref Live, because Sonia has written some wonderful, wonderful blogs with great insight, and the benefit of her experience is there for everybody to see in writing on the Ref Live website. So make sure you really do check that out, because Sonia's written some wonderful pieces on there.
Absolutely.
So there we go. Thank you everyone for watching and listening, and to our special guest, Sonia. I could listen to you for literally hours. We're going to have to get you back on for another episode, I reckon. But for now, merci beaucoup.
Merci. Thank you. It was great. Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.